Shortly before 5 p.m. on Monday night, Adolf Merkel quietly put on his coat, told his wife, "I have to go to the office for a while," and drove to a railway embankment near his home, where he lay on the frozen tracks and waited patiently for his death. So I don't know if you know who this is, but Adolf Merkel was amongst the 100 most wealthiest men in the world. His personal fortune was to the extent of 8.5 billion pounds. And what had catalyzed his response to a specific situation was that he had been involved in the recession, and his earnings had slowly started to erode. So he left a suicide note for his wife Ruth, and all it said on the note was, "I'm sorry." So everyone tried to understand what was going on. If you would actually look at his personal wealth, even in the interval that he took his own life, his friends were absolutely aghast. Why? Because at that point in time, he still amassed the wealth of 6 billion pounds. So the question we have to ask is, why on earth would such an individual take their life? Yes, you're losing a huge amount of money. You're no longer the world's richest man. You're still probably up there amongst, many. But what is it that caused him to take his life? And they were all trying to understand what it was, what had caused him to engage with this circumstance in such a way. And what most of his friends came up with were the following. One of his friends said, and the family also came to the following conclusion, that they blamed his demise on a complex combination of pride, guilt over what he saw as failing his family, and perhaps most importantly, loss of control. Loss of control. They quote here, his companies were his life, and when he was going to lose control of them, he obviously felt he would lose control of his life. "This is the only way I can see it," said one of his friends. So what is going on here? You have an individual who was worth 8.5 billion pounds. Now he's worth 6 billion. And what they attribute this action to, what they attribute him taking his own life to, was a feeling of lack of control. Now, the attribute that we're learning tonight,
that's just his friends, though.
That was the assumption of his friends. That was the assumption of his friends and family. We have no clue what took place. No clue of how to interpret it. This is an assumption. But to a certain extent, with these individuals being the closest ones to him, to understand him, it's a safe assumption. But I understand there could be many other avenues to understand why he took his own life. Now, this is not the only circumstance of extremely wealthy people losing money and then being in a circumstance that objectively, if you looked at their wealth, they would still be considered extremely wealthy with most likely way more money than they ever need in their entire life, but they still take their life. There's still some reaction to the circumstance that causes them to have to react in such a dire manner. Now, the attribute that we're learning tonight about is an attribute called Hoid. So we've been going up the spheres of the Eitz HaChaim, of the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life, essentially. And we've gone through the spheres, the conscious emanations of Malchus, where we tapped into our bodies, tapped into a presence of just being in life. We then tapped into another state of consciousness called Yisoid. And Yisoid, we learned about how to engage with relationships, but not only relationships with people, but relationships with circumstances or life itself. learning how to engage with life, letting go and being in a relationship. When you talk to someone, are you actively thinking or are you present? So before we engage with this specific Sefira, with Hoyd, and we have our new visitor joining us now. Okay, so before we investigate and try and understand what this attribute is, I want everyone here to tap into the initial consciousness that we've been engaging with. So I want you to just feel yourself sitting on the chair. Reconnect with some aspect of your breath. Breathing comfortably, not in any specific way. Allowing your breath to slowly allow you to remove your identity from thought and bring you into a present state. Feel the calm energy that surrounds, that's inside of you. With every inhalation, feel an exuberance and a warmth and an energy of peace. And with every exhalation, feel as if that turmoil and anxiety, fear, and concern subsides. I want you to inhabit your body, be inside your body. Don't be in your thoughts, don't be in all of the stresses that essentially don't even exist. Just like the interruptions of life, our thoughts may arise and take us out of a state of presence and of consciousness. So bring yourself back with compassion, with a humor, with a lightness. Bring yourself back to your breath. I want you to bring yourself back to the room now by blinking your eyes. Retain a sense of presence in your body, retain a sense of being in the room and in the situation that we only really know exists, and that is right now. Life, as we look around every single individual here, life is elusive, and life continuously teaches us that the foremost thing that we try to have a handle on, which is control, to have some sense of established barriers, some sense of establishment of self, life constantly sends us reminders that we are not in control. Life constantly reminds us that beyond whatever we can envisage, whatever we can try and establish, whatever thing we think defines us, is continuously in a state of ebb and flow, in a state of vulnerability. The biggest shocks come to individuals that think that they've made it. The biggest shocks come to individuals that think, you know what, I've established here. Only today I met with an individual in his home, a person who you would consider one of the most established individuals. Gosh, if you saw this home, gewalt, I mean, the art and the views and the things that were in this place. And lo and behold, they find a tumor in his chest. And yet, we go on in life thinking that there's exceptions to rules, and we think that maybe we'll make it through. And this is not about being negative, but this is about understanding that whatever takes place around us will take place around us. And we can be as proactive and as pragmatic and as finely tuned into life, but life constantly sends us reminders that it doesn't go the way you plan it to go. So what do? You're an individual with 8.5 billion euros, an individual called Adolf Merkel, who happens to lose 2.5 of those billion euros. How do you react? How do you react to those circumstances in life where you have a specific trajectory that you're aiming for and it doesn't go the exact way you planned? How do you react to life when you have a specific established shell that you've defined as yourself and now you've got a crack? What do? So most people say that the way to deal with it is to persevere. Finally, we will get to a circumstance in our lives where we'll be able to smooth sail. Everything will be so perfectly organized, we'll be able to attain so much that it's smooth sailing from there. Maybe a few shakes, a few bumps, but generally speaking, if we make enough, if we're successful enough, then it's just smooth and straight sailing from there. That point of time that we generally set for ourselves is generally the point in time that health issues start to arise. Kids leave home. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. But life always has its challenges. So what do? Comes in the attribute of hoid. Hoid in English is a term called sublimating. To sublimate. It is one of the most important character traits. That if you're able to sublimate, if you're able to be an individual, you know what it means to sublimate? Anyone heard the word sublimate before? Yeah, what does it mean to sublimate, Neville?
Well, I know from a technical aspect, it's if you sublimate one substance to another, a very fine substance that adheres to another one.
Excellent, beautiful definition. You adhere to life itself, which means the constructed reality that we create for ourselves, the avenues that we think defines every circumstance of who we are. And when there is a crack or when there's a circumstance in life that arises, instead of fighting that circumstance, instead of going head force against that circumstance, you adhere to it. You sublimate. Which means instead of judging a circumstance as bad or as good, what do? It just is. You accept. But not in accepting bad, I accept that this situation is bad, or I accept that I'm in a bad situation, but you just are with life itself. You adhere to life itself. You don't fight life. You don't try and be smarter than life, but you're together with life. Sublimation comes from the word hoid. The essence of what it means to be a Jew, the essence of what it means to be a Yehudi, comes from this terminology of hoid. So when we have circumstances in life, circumstances that seem like waves, the general way that we deal with a wave is how? What do you do when you have a wave coming your way? What would you say?
Go underneath it or over it.
You go underneath or over it. What I see, people that don't know this, I mean, it's the most illogical if you look at it, it's the craziest thing to do. You have a wave coming to you, so you would either run away from it, or you'll try and jump over it, or you try and man yourself to try go connect it, or go against that wave as much as the power that you have.
Or you surf it.
Or you surf it. That's our next attribute that we'll deal with. But sometimes the wave is too rough. Sometimes you can't surf it. Or there is an aspect of surfing. That's a very good point, actually. So let's try and unpack Hoid. I think that what you said is actually very important. Okay, let's try and unpack Hoid. So there's two ways of dealing with a wave. The first way is to jump underneath that wave and to go into the water itself. Why is that really something that seemingly seems very strange? Because you're jumping into the source itself. You're jumping into the water. That's a crazy thing. I don't want to be in this. I want to be away from this. I don't want to be subsumed by this. But what we're learning about is that every single circumstance in our life, be it our marriages, be it our circumstances financially, be it our health, be it our success and failures, every single circumstance has within it an essential force that you're able to engage with, which is called life itself. There's a beauty and there's a truth to every single thing that you experience. If you fight it constantly, for example, a marriage that an individual is struggling with, there is so much difficulty that a person may face where there's just constant lack of connection. Being berated, feeling that if only I had something different. If only I had a circumstance which was better. Someone I could connect to a little bit better. Someone that understood me better. So essentially, what are you doing from the wave? You're running away from it. But there are two ways to engage with a wave healthily. That is, you jump underneath it, which means you give yourself to it. You allow yourself to be part of it. And you try and dissolve or adhere to what life itself is giving you. But by adhering to it doesn't mean that you're just a prisoner. It doesn't mean that you just give yourself over to the circumstance. It means that you galvanize every single thing that's there and you understand that life itself is coming to engage with you in a specific way. There's something there that it wants you to be with. Give yourself underneath that wave. But that next way, as Richard explained, is to surf it. To surf that circumstance. To try and understand what is in that circumstance that is good. So the general way of engaging with loss is, what don't I have? This businessman, I mean, how many of you would be happy with 6 billion euros? You'd be okay with that, Isaac? I'd be pretty happy with that. That'd be an amazing, situation to be in. 6 billion euros. Wow. How much is there to be thankful for? How much can I engage with life? I mean, you would be the happiest guy. But you just change the circumstance and you give the individual 8.5 billion euros and you take away 2.5. Now the guy wants to take his life. Now we might think and look at that circumstance, but I question how many other circumstances do we rob ourselves of? How many other circumstances are there that we commit suicide, so to speak, because it didn't go the way we wanted to be? That we've lost control, that we've created some trajectory that we wanted to go on and it went a different way and we commit suicide. We commit suicide in our marriages, we commit suicide in our families, we commit suicide in our jobs. And not only do we commit suicide in all of these extremely important places, but there's one of the most fundamental places that we commit suicide. And that is the only place that you actually find yourself. And that is in the present moment that you're in. You see, the present moment that we're in is sometimes a moment that we're not happy to be in because we have so many pre-established understandings of how the moment should manifest. We have so many expectations of the moment that we're in that we never actually live in the moment. It's too hot. I want something else to eat. What's showing on TV? But if it's showing on TV, what's next? What is the next moment? What happened before that moment? We always engage with the moment as if it's never good enough. So essentially we're looking at every moment as 8.5 billion going down to 6 billion, and we kill it. But essentially what is there in that moment? Life itself. Existence itself. One of the most beautiful things to engage with. Your breath. Your consciousness. So much blessing surrounds you. So much is there just to be. But we're scared because we've lost the 2.5 billion. Before we continue, are there any questions? I want to read to you a quote. And the quote is important because where we speak about these concepts, it often feels that it's almost like you need to be a Nebuch. You need to be almost like a schlepper. Like, if you're smart, you try and deal with life to avoid mishap, you avoid everything. If you're really smart and successful, you're really able to second guess every single failure and you just go straight. No battered bruises, nothing. You just go straight. We've established that doesn't ever happen. But on the other hand, what are you advising we do? When we hear these concepts, does that mean you should just let go? You should just float around in life, do whatever you need to do and just, see what comes out of it? So I want to read to you a quote. To surrender to life's exigencies does not mean that one meekly turns the other cheek. On the contrary, it means that we engage in life fully, that we ride the rhythms of life and sing to the cosmic winds. What that means is that there is so much in front of us. There is simple life to be engaged with. There's so much beauty to exist with. There's so much song to sing in every single situation. And what Hoy teaches us is when there is some sense of dissonance between the direction that you've sort of paved for yourself and there's a little bit of a different direction, that you don't commit suicide. That you don't say, I'm disengaging with this because it didn't go the way that I want it to go. And essentially, where is that premised in? That's premised in us losing the ego. That's premised in ourselves being able to say, I let go to life. Because what the ego is doing is saying, I need to be in control. I need to have everything established because that's what defines me. And God forbid something doesn't go the way that I've established it to be or want it to go in. God forbid. Why? Because now I've lost my semblance of who I am. To let go of my established realities around me, my home, my furniture. I spoke about my cow rug in shul the other night. How I came home from holiday and I saw that my beloved cow rug was devoured by my dog. I can't tell you the emotions that came inside of me. But where that stemmed from was from a feeling of not being in control. That I've got everything beautifully established. You come into my home, nice wooden fixtures, everything's gewaldig, beautiful. You come in, look at me, this is Shmuel. Excellent, perfect. And then the bloody dog comes along and eats my cow rug.
But how does that relate to children? Because you could say, like, I'm not going to get frustrated and disciplined and scream at them. I'm just going to, live the moment, and they'll come right on their own, and your wife's going crazy, sort it out.
I understand. That's a very, very important question. So essentially, the best way to raise children is to really support them in their growth, but to give them also a sense of boundary and a sense of direction. If you're too overbearing and you snuff out their existence, then you don't really have children that know how to stand on their own 2 feet. They don't have any expression of who they are essentially. So in raising kids, this is a very important principle. To be able to let, to be able to accept. What was the terminology you used for sublimating?
Adhere.
To adhere. To adhere to life, whatever the circumstance is, whatever the situation is, whatever the failure is. We'll speak about the successes. But life constantly erodes. That's the nature of life. Your health erodes. I know we try to go against it, but the health erodes. Relationships erode eventually. Your established physical things around you erode. Things erode, even your thoughts erode. So what is life essentially if it's not for just being there and adhering to where you are in at that moment?
So why are people so averse to smoking?
So that's what I said. When you're raising kids, you need strong boundaries, positive boundaries and direction, which means you have to be healthy in life. It doesn't mean that you let go and you're not engaging with life in a pragmatic way. You have to be pragmatic, and that's that concept here. That it's not that you just turn the other cheek. It means that you engage fully with life. It means that you ride the rhythms of life and sing to its cosmic winds. You don't need a smoke in a circumstance that you're in because that's life. You love it. It's not stressful. Could be stressful. But you embrace every circumstance that you're in. So I want to give you another example of this. So, Hoid, we know every single specific Sefira, every specific sphere that we engage with of consciousness pertains to a specific part of the body. So we're going to ask our expert here, Rabbi Yaakov Lehman, which limb does the attribute of Hoid pertain to?
The left leg.
The left leg. And in your understanding, why, in a brief way, would you say that Hoid pertains to the left leg?
That's a good question. The legs are taking an interesting approach going bottom up, so I don't want to jump ahead into the upper part of the Sefirot, but the legs are what take things the distance. So it's the part of us that is furthest away from the center core of who we are and most close to our expression to something else, the zulat, the other in the language of the Kabbalists. So it's a part of us that's closest to giving and sharing something else over. Struggling in the context and framework you have.
Okay, so we're the general approach of the spheres, which is what Yaakov's referring to, is that you go from the spheres, so the highest spheres, and you emanate down. The way that we're approaching it is from the ladder of Jacob. So the ladder of Jacob is that the Malachim, the angels, went up and then down. And sometimes the most accessible places for an individual, or the archetypal way to access this, is to work from down up. The Nefesh HaChaim, one of the very great Kabbalists, said that this is the actual way of climbing the ladder, from going the lowest spheres up. If you're so stuck, you can't get anywhere, then you go from the highest spheres and you bring it down. But we'll discuss that at a later stage. But let's try and understand why the leg. Why do you gentlemen think Hoid is the leg, the left leg out of all legs? Richard, our yoga expert. Okay.
Your legs determine your direction.
Yes.
You can walk right, you can walk left. There's something in adhering to something about its. I guess I don't know. I'm thinking even under.
How does adhering mean movement? Okay, so yeah, Neville.
Your journey starts with your left leg.
Your journey, so we actually say your journey starts with your right leg in Judaism, yeah. If you're a left legger, I don't know if there's a concept of a left legger, yeah.
Is it about control?
Control, yeah, what do you mean?
Well, I don't know, almost if you have control of your legs, you can go, you can feel like you can go wherever you want, but
Yes.
actually, I don't know.
Okay, so I think this could be where you're going, but you can't walk if you don't have two legs, essentially. Yeah, you can maybe hobble along, but balance, or this concept of Hoid, allows you to walk in life. When you feel debilitated, when you feel immobilized, when you feel so stuck because of circumstances, your marriage sucks, your work sucks, life sucks. Maybe there's something good showing on TV, but beyond that, not much is really going well. Maybe there's even successes, but still you're not galvanizing life itself. If you don't have the attribute of Hoid, you're immobilized. You don't want to move, you don't want to go anywhere. And you start to engage with other things to try and give you a false sense of movement. Travel, drugs, could be other women, could be different experiences of food. These things are external aspects of movement that could be artificial. What Hoid allows you to do is move through life. An example of that. Imagine the following. You've been tasked to make a birthday party for one of your friends. Okay, and it's a good friend. It's a surprise birthday party. You trying to think of what to do for this individual. You've been tasked to run this. So you're thinking of doing this crazy surprise birthday party. It's going to be the most amazing birthday party. He's not even going to know that anyone's there. It's going to just be like bang, like full of lights, amazing entertainment. It's going to be the best party that anyone has ever seen. The only issue is that your friend is a bit of an introvert. He doesn't like surprises, likes intimate parties, doesn't like lots of people, lots of entertainment. So now what do? How do you engage with that situation? So now, if you're an individual that's living in your own ego, then stuff the guy, I need to make the best party. My ego tells me it has to be the best party. Everyone's going to speak about my party. But you're going to get into a lot of dissonance. Things aren't really going to work smoothly from there, aren't they? Relationships start to suffer. You start to suffer because you're not really getting the recognition necessarily of what you're trying to aim for. Comes along Hoid. Hoid teaches us to sublimate. Hoid teaches us to be able to adhere. Hoid teaches us to take the circumstances and give ourselves to them. My friend doesn't like a lot of people. All right. My ego tells me it needs to be the best party, but life is telling me differently. Let me engage and make a different party. Nice group of friends, some nice bottles of whiskey, maybe some music, something nice to engage with that my friend will enjoy. But now you see how you've changed a situation all about you to a situation all about what is. and you've allowed yourself to engage with life. You've allowed yourself to bring out life itself. I'm going to give you 2 more examples, then I want to do a meditation with you. There's a situation in the Torah that we see this word hoid brought. And this situation is brought down in a pasuk, in a verse in the Torah, where Moses is about to impart his knowledge or about to impart his leadership over to whom? Who takes over? Joshua, Yehoshua. Now, what could you envisage to be a problem in this circumstance? What could you envisage in this shift in leadership? What could happen? What do you say, Isaac?
Well, they may both have different styles of leadership.
100%.
One will not be happy with the other.
So imagine, the Jewish people are thinking back to Moses, speaks face to face with God, brings all of these insane miracles to the Jewish people, has led them through the desert to see prophecies, to see the splitting of the sea. They associate with Moses as one of the most sublime realities possible. Now they're told, Moses is not coming with you anymore to the land of Israel. You got a new guy that's going to take you, and his name's Yehoshua. Now there is a very, very big fear that comes into the Jewish people. And God says to Moses, "V'nasata mohidecha alav leman yishmu kol adas b'nei Yisrael." It says that God speaks to Moses and he says, "Give over to Yehoshua mehoidecha." Give over your hoid to him. What does that mean, give over your hoid to him? What that means is that this generation that was so involved in a specific way, a specific trajectory, where you have individuals saying we don't even want to enter into Israel itself. We're scared to enter into Israel. You know why they were scared? You had these individuals spying out the land and saying how bad the land was. You know why they did that? They didn't want to let go. They didn't want to let go of that experience, of that clarity, of that light that they were engaging with. But comes along situations in life which don't go with the way that you want it to go. That consciousness, that brightness, that light, that exuberance. Sometimes you wake up and you're not in the mood. Sometimes things don't go the way you want it to be. In fact, it generally does that. So what was happening was essentially God was saying, give to Yeshua mehoidecha. Give him the attribute of hoid to be able to teach the Jewish people a different approach. Because this approach is so vital, it's so necessary. Because what was going to happen was these individuals, imagine, going from miracles, their clothes being laundered, everything perfect, stepping into the land of Israel, having to become farmers. The irrigation doesn't go the way you want it. I have to now, create circumstances that don't always go the way I want. I don't see a clarity of spirituality. I don't always feel conscious. I sometimes feel lost. So Hashem says, give them the attribute of hoid. Teach them how to engage with situations when they don't go the way they want it to go. Before we do the meditation, found within the word hoid is also a big secret. So we said that hoid is sublimating. Hoid is giving yourself over. Hoid is adhering to life. You know what else hoid means? You're an Israeli, no? What else does hoid mean, Rabbi Yaakov?
Hodu. Thankfulness.
A thankfulness, but even more than that, splendor, sublime. The word hoid means sublime. It means so elative. It means so amazing. It means the most sublime reality possible. Gentlemen, how could it be in the worst moment, when there's failure, when there's loss, when things don't go the way that you want, how on earth can there be an aspect of sublime in that? How? Matthew?
Realization that things can continue even if they continue to put you.
Good.
But out of terrible things, good things come.
Okay.
In every bad situation, there's a good situation too.
What is it? That something might arise from this that's good? Something in the future that you don't know of? For me, I'm very skeptical. Who knows if something's going to arise out of it? How do I engage with this situation now? That's going to be perfect for me. How?
Just engaging with it makes it perfect.
Oh, exactly. Hoid is being able to see the sublime inside every single moment. That if we were to now take ourselves and bring ourselves deeply into the now, deeply into the moment, deeply into our breaths, you'll be able to realize it's not that what is around you and what you define yourself by and what blessings seem to be there that makes it sublime. It's the simple space of existing that is so sublime. Feeling the expansiveness and the consciousness and life itself through breath. There's a sublime reality that life teaches us. Loss. Loss. Behind every loss is a spaciousness that's there. Is an expansiveness that's there. That we quickly realize or recognize or we quickly run away from and avoid.
But if the loss occurs, you can't run away from it and avoid it.
You can ignore it. Some people deal with loss with this. And that's a way of forgetting the loss or experiencing or distracting the self from the loss. But loss, behind every loss, is a recognition that you're not defined by what that was. There is a spaciousness and there's life behind that. There is life and there is expansiveness and consciousness even behind the loss. You exist still there.
There's growth behind the loss.
There's growth behind the loss. And the deepest growth is a deeper recognition of who you are. Loss is the deepest teacher of who you are. Success is sometimes the most dangerous place to be in because you lose track of who you essentially are. And you get addicted to success. You get addicted to more and more and more, and it's never enough. But imagine you're able to appreciate what underlies that. Imagine how much life then becomes something that you're able to galvanize and engage with directly. I'll give you one more example and then we'll do this meditation. You know where else Hoid exists? When you just wake up. And you say, Moide ani lefanecha. Moide comes from the word Hoid. And according to the Kabbalists, Moide ani can be said even when your hands are impure, even when there is failure, even when you are distant, even when you feel so completely detached from every single state of consciousness. You say Moide ani lefanecha. You say that there's an underlying presence, an underlying adherence to life, even in the state that I am in. Accept even being unconscious. Accept even when there is failure and just be there and allow it. Because there's nothing worse. There is nothing worse than failing and not accepting the failure. Because if you fail, you have the pain of failure and then you're constantly in pain fighting against the failure. You can't accept it. Imagine a person that's sick, God forbid. So they're going through the pain and suffering, God forbid, of sickness. But furthermore, they're constantly fighting against the framework that they're in or the situation that they're in. Saying, I don't accept that I'm there. I'm not present. I'm against it. Imagine what state you're in. But if a person accepts the moment that they're in, is able to now engage with life, that teaches us, the moide ani, that when your hands are sullied, your hands are impure, you still have this aspect of moide, of hoida, seeing the sublime even in the impurity. What I want to do is the following. I'm going to do a kabbalistic meditation. Okay? The preamble to this meditation is the following. According to Kabbalah, the angels have how many wings? Do you know? It says that they have 6 wings. And the reason why they have 6 wings is they need 2 wings on the upper state of the torso in order to cover their faces. The reason why they have to cover their faces is that sometimes there is too much light. There's too much success. When a person is too much conscious and too successful, the danger in that is that they can become too arrogant and burn themselves up through that experience. We're going to learn about that when we do Netzach, this next Sefira. Then they have the middle wings, which is just to allow them to fly. And then they have the lower wings. The reason why they have the lower wings is that when they get so low, the cold of becoming so low in circumstances that seem cold and seem like failures, they need to protect themselves as well. They need to sublimate. Sublimating is the biggest protection for life. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a special kabbalistic meditation. According to Kabbalah, when you breathe, your inhalation is when you fill yourself with light. It's when you fill yourself with godliness. It's when you fill yourself with expansiveness. It's when you fill yourself with consciousness. But too much breath you can't have. If you carry on breathing, you can't. You stop yourself. That's telling us that sometimes too much success, too much consciousness, too much connection is too much. You get burnt by the fire. Too much. So you stop. Imagine you kept on breathing. I don't know, you blow up. And then you exhale. Exhaling, sublimating. Exhaling is being in situations when they don't go the way you want it to go. When you are just back to yourself. When it's just you. According to Kabbalah, the following words are used. Ayin and ani. Ayin means what? Nothingness. Ayin means nothingness, or ain means nothingness. And ani means the I. The external I, the me. I ask you, when do you think the ayin is experienced and when do you think the ani is experienced? When do you think the nothingness is experienced and when do you think the I is experienced in breath? Is it in the inhalation or the exhalation? Or vice versa?
Ayin when you breathe in.
So when you breathe in, you're saying you experience the nothingness?
I think it's the opposite.
You think it's the opposite? When I breathe in, it's all about me,
Well,
the I?
When you're sublimating, you're expressing your true self, which is ani, which is the out, the breath out.
Okay. So good. So the concept here, and I would think it was the opposite as you're saying as well, Brian. But the Kabbalists teach us the nothingness, giving yourself up, the extreme consciousness, clarity is experienced through the breath. The lungs filling up completely. Life makes sense. I'm conscious. I'm present. Everything is okay. Everything's good. But essentially, it's good in the deepest way because I'm giving myself over to the ayin. I've almost completely given myself over to God. That's the breath. Too much of that can sometimes kill you. There's certain individuals that say that learned Kabbalah and they got stuck. Some of them died because there was too much light. On the other hand, sometimes there are moments of darkness. Sometimes there are moments of lack of clarity. That is letting go. And you know when those moments appear? When the ego is in the way. When life is all about you, when life is all about the external I, that's when you can't galvanize life itself. You can be in the biggest blessing, you can have 6 billion euros, But the ego says, I stuffed up, I lost control, I'm a failure, and life sucks, and I'd rather kill myself on some train tracks. That I is the most dangerous place to be in. That lack of consciousness. So what we're going to do is the following meditation. We're going to be breathing. What I want you to do while you're breathing, the inhalation, I want you to almost envisage this light that's emanating through you and around you, and give yourself over to that breath. Almost feel a consciousness and let go of you entirely. Completely let go of you and enter into a state of just is. Completely tap into a state of nothingness, but everything at the same time. And then when we breathe out, understand that that breathing out is a space of ani, of I. It's a place of lack of air. But we're going to try and see the sublime in that as well. But what we'll also be doing, as the Kabbalists advise, is like the wings of the angels. When we breathe in, we're going to cover our face with our hands. When we breathe out, we're going to cover our knees with our hands. Representing when we breathe in, we're going to be able to sort of have that light, but not get too cocky from it, too arrogant from it. And when we breathe out, we're in moments of failure and moments of darkness and in moments of cold, that we protect ourselves and we understand that we can sublimate. This is life. Let us adhere to life. Let us engage with life itself. Okay, so I want everyone to place your hands on your knees. Breathe out. Hold your breath. Hold that lack of breath. Breathing in. Cover your face. Keep on breathing in and hold that breath deeply inside and feel that sublimation, or feel that immense, sublime reality of connecting to God. Conscious. Dissolve yourself into the nothingness and breathe out. Cover your knees. Sublimating. Allowing that things don't always go the way what we want. Breathing in. Covering the eyes. Breathing out. I want you to do 5 more goes with this. But consciously in your own minds, taking the time that you need to holding that breath. But consciously with each breath, able to sublimate when you breathe out, and breathing in that energy of nothingness and tapping into God when you're breathing in. Covering the eyes when you're breathing in and covering the knees when you breathe out. Once you bring your attention back to the room, I want to end off with a story that I think illustrates this concept of Hoid. Yitzhak Perlman, a famous violinist, an individual that was stricken with polio. One day in a concert that he was performing in Lincoln Center in New York City, he slowly made his way to his chair on his crutches, and he unclasped the braces around his legs. And he famously would tuck one foot back and extend the other foot forward. And he picks up his violin and proceeds to instruct the conductor to start. And as he's about to start, suddenly, one string broke on his violin. So now, any normal individual would get up, maybe get another violin. But Yitzhak Perlman knew for him to go up and get another violin would take a lengthy period of time. This guy needs to then put his braces back on, go on his crutches, go and get another violin. So everyone was aghast. But they said that when that string broke, it sounded like a gunshot. What Yitzhak Perlman does, in silent serenity, closes his eyes. Everyone thinks he's freaking out. What is this guy going to do? What he does, to the amazement of the entire audience, is he picks up that violin with the 3 strings on it, and he plays the most amazing symphony they've ever heard. He had to rewrite the entire symphony. He had to readjust every single thing that was there and perform a new symphony. But essentially, this is what the attribute of Hoid is teaching us. That when the violin string breaks, do you throw it away? Do you get off the stage? Do you say, sorry guys, I can't perform? Or do you take that violin and you play those final 3 strings until it's the most amazing symphony you've ever played? Because that's essentially what life is about. When you have those failures, when you have 3 strings left, do you give up? Or do you say, I'm going to play the symphony no matter what because I'm connected to life? This is what it's about. This is what life is all about. To be able to play even when there is 1 string broken. This is the concept of Hoid. Hashem should bless us. That the concept of adhering to life is the true quality of what it means to be a Yehudi. What it means to be a conscious being. What it means to be present in every single moment. And allow your minds to be settled, to understand that you are where you are. And it's the most sublime reality. It's amazing to note, sublimate. It's very rare to find an English word that is very unique and similar to the Hebrew word. But hoid and hoid to really adhere or give yourself off also means sublime. But to sublimate has the same word in it. It has the word sublime in it. To be able to sublimate is to see the sublime of every circumstance. To see what you can play with those 3 strings. Should be with brocha. Are there any questions?
Yeah, why the left leg?
So the right leg is what is your step forward. We can be speaking about confidence and what the right leg represents in life and about achievement. But the left leg is what gives you balance. It's when the achievement sort of goes a little bit wonky. It doesn't go the way you want. The left leg allows you to be balanced. But without that balance, you can't move. You're immobilized. You could have the best right leg. You really want it to go forward. You want it to go as far as you want. If you don't have a left leg, you can't walk. And you see it so often. You have people that just give up. I failed. I can't go forward. I'm giving up. Take me yourself. I don't want to go forward. What are you doing? You know how much blessing you have? Are you mad? You know how much there is good in your life? You know how much you have to... There is so much to be thankful for. There's so much to engage with. Gewalt. Yeah.
The ratio of the 1 string in 4 is a similar ratio of the 2 billion out of 8.
Yes. Exactly.
That is how we view this.
It's how you view it. Play the 3. Play the 3. There's so much. There's a famous story of two Hasidim, 2 individuals, one very saintly individual that was placed in jail with his student. And the student is sitting there bemoaning the fact that there's a bucket in the middle of the room. And what the bucket is where they excrete. That's where they go to the toilet. So the master turns to his student and says, why are you so depressed? You look so upset. He says, I'm so upset because I can't learn Torah here. Here I'm with my rabbi and I can speak in Torah and everything. I can be tapping in. When do I ever have the opportunity to be with you? Now I can't learn. I can't pray. I can't do anything. I can't connect to anything. So the Hasidic master turns to his student and he says, because, by the way, if you don't understand, in that circumstance, you're not allowed to pray or learn Torah when there's excrement or there's dirty situations. So that's why he said, I can't learn here. There's the toilets right in the middle of us. So the Hasidic master turns to his student and he says, don't you understand that just like God wills it or wants it that we learn Torah or we pray, He also wills it and wants it that when there's excrement in the room, we don't learn and pray. So by essence, you are fulfilling God's will by not learning and praying. It's doing the same thing. So this student was brought back to life. They grab each other's hands and they start dancing around this bucket, singing a nigun, and they're singing around this bucket. They're like so happy. So the guard, what's going on here with these crazy Jews? What's going on? So he thinks that they're happy that there's this toilet, there's the singing around it. They're so happy about the toilet that it's right there. They don't have to walk down the road. It's right in front of them. So he comes in, I'll show you Jews. And he comes in and he picks up the toilet and he brings that outside of the cage, outside of wherever they're staying. Now they can sit and learn. But the same is with life. We sit and we say, look at this toilet, I can't do this. But if we say, this is what life wills from us, it wants this from us, this is the most perfect, ideal situation. Just like God willed this, He wills that. Dance around it. You'll see how much beauty comes into your life. You'll see how much sublime reality there is in every single second that you pertain an existence in this world. Life is gorgeous, life is beautiful, life is not something to fight and be depressed about. Every moment, every breath is a blessing. Gentlemen, it should be with bracha. Any other questions? Yeah, Rabbi Yaakov.
I just want to add in here, beautiful, beautiful presentation for Shmuel. Oh, we have so much to talk about.
Thank you, Rabbi Yaakov.
Make it happen for you on Thursday. But one of the core essence of being Jewish comes from Yehuda, which is the same word. And if you look at the life of Judah, the original Jew, was full of embarrassment, primarily at this, seminal moment where he's walking down the street and he comes to a crossroads. Seems to be a prostitute there, right? It's supposed to be his son's wife, Tamar. She's disguised as a prostitute. And anyway, there's the whole situation that happens there. And then it comes, to Judah's attention. Hey, your daughter-in-law is pregnant. What are you going to do? He says, burn her, right? And so he's, the head, and he sits there, and she's ready to take it. She's ready to go to her death, not revealing secret. But she just says the last second, says, whoever's staff and whoever's chotemet, whose signet this is, that's who I was with. She gave Judah a little message, and he says, you know what? She's more righteous than I. And he was modeh, he acknowledged, he was able to take the embarrassment and, what would be the proper English word here?
Sublimate.
It's sublimate, but it's also, it's acknowledge, I think. It's like sublimate.
You give yourself over.
You give yourself over. And this is the essence of Judah's greatness, and Judah's the one who gets the Malchus. King David comes from Judah. This is the kingship of all of Am Yisrael. Is based on this person who was in such an embarrassing, difficult situation. He could have just buried this and forgotten it and sacrificed this woman. But he acknowledged that he was wrong. And it's like such a pivotal point in the history of our people. Judah, the very reason we're called Jews, he made a mistake and he was able to sublimate, to give himself over to this. And such a powerful energy to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So many elements here. But just wanted to
Yaakov just reminded me, and we'll conclude with this. And if you have any other questions, you can email Neville. But the following I want to conclude with, and that is King David, as Yaakov is speaking about, really, who is the essence of Malchus, of kingship. It says that according to Kabbalah, we have something called the Merkava. The Merkava is a spiritual wagon that takes you to a state of consciousness. And essentially, we know that this wagon always had 3 wheels. 3 wheels. Who were the people that represented these wheels? The forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These were the 3 wheels. It says that there was one interval in time of David's life that there was a 4th wheel that was added to this wagon. The wagon that represents, it will take you to spiritual consciousness and enlightenment. Do you know when King David was added as the 4th wheel to this wagon? Do you know which moment in his life did he become the fourth wheel? It says that he was ousted from Jerusalem. Why was he ousted from Jerusalem? His son Avshalom created a coup. His own son went against him, kicked him out. He was despondent. He was kicked out of Israel. Imagine the failure that he experienced. And imagine how everything was down and downtrodden. Everything was a failure. This was the king and he's out by his own son. It says that his own son slept with, I don't know how many concubines he had, but he slept with his own wives. Took King David's wives and he slept with them in public view, just to show who's boss. Yet what does King David do? It says that as he's walking along one of the mountains out of Jerusalem, it says that there's an individual, I think his name was Shimi ben Gera. Shimi ben Gera was a supporter of King Solomon, the King Saul, I apologize, the previous king. And he comes and he says to King David, you see, you're a nothing. You see, it was all a trick along the whole time. You're a nothing. He starts kicking sand and rocks at King David. He starts throwing insults at the king himself. And King David's bodyguards are there and they say, listen, you want us to take this man, we'll kill him in a second. I mean, these are the Krav Maga on steroids, type of thing. We'll kill him in a second. King David said at that moment, this is what God wants. This is how I'm meant to be. I'm not going to react. I sublimate to what is. I will engage with my life entirely. 100% I give myself to it. This is what life is. At that moment, he became the fourth wheel of the chariot that takes you, chariot sounds better than wagon, takes him to the state of consciousness. If we are able to sublimate, I promise you, the amount that you will be able to galvanize in your life, the amount of happiness you'll be able to take, the amount of dissonance you'll be able to remove is astonishing. Okay? The crazy thing is to understand that Mashiach, it says the Messiah, who essentially represents consciousness at its core, at its epitome, is someone that has to go through suffering. It speaks about the Messiah in Isaiah. It speaks about the Jewish people have gone through loss. Loss is the biggest teacher. The biggest curse, it says, is to constantly be successful. That's the biggest curse a person can have. Because you lose track of who you are, and then you get to a state where everything is so perfect, but inside there's a vacuum, and you're living in a perfect cage inside of hell. So, loss itself is a teacher. Loss itself is there to teach you something. When something doesn't go your way, and you feel a dissonance to it, say, is it the ayin or is it the ani? Is it the me that's in the way or is it the nothingness? Once you're in the nothingness and you give yourself to life, then you don't feel that dissonance anymore. You're able to engage with life happily.
Can I just ask, I understand conceptually, the concept, the beautiful concepts, but
yes.
How do you, practically apply it in your life? I mean, it's, you can understand it, but to apply it is a different thing.
What the important state or the work that you need to do in order to be here is to understand what is your identity. Who are you, essentially? If it's the control, if it's the things that you amass around you, if it's the way you perceive life needs to be going, which is an illusory self, then this is not going to work. This is not going to work. But if you are able to identify and say, I see all of this happening around me. I see that I'm getting really upset now because something didn't go my way. And then you understand what it is. You say it's the ani, it's the I, it's the ego, it's the part of me that wants to be in control. It's the part of me that is denying life essentially. And in order to battle that, what you do is you jump into the wave. You say, I'm going to make a conscious decision to separate myself from the ego and live with life itself. Tap into the deepest state of I am, the deepest state of who you are, a deep state of consciousness that's beyond all the constructed realities that you think make you who you are. On a very basic level, All it means is bring yourself into the only thing you know for sure, and that is into the present moment. Bring yourself into what you see. I'm here, inhabit your body, inhabit just being where you are. You can utilize being thankful for your circumstances, whatever, on a simple level. Start thanking, start noticing what is going well, start seeing the 6 billion euros that you have there. That's a really good start. You know, there's an individual who wrote a book called 1,000 Thank Yous. You probably heard about it on my previous class. And it's an individual that went around the world. You heard of this book? It's an individual, a Jewish guy, I think, and he goes around the world and he thanks every single person behind his cup of coffee in the morning. So he goes and he thanks all of the people that have paved the streets that his coffee could get to where it needed to get. He thanks the pest control behind the plantations that the plants could grow. He thanks, all different things. It took him 1,000 people to thank in order to have one cup of coffee. Can you imagine how many things need to go right in order for you to be where you are? In order for you to have the clothing, the warmth that you have? In order for everything in your body to be working? But we think about the 2.5 billion and we forget about the 6 billion that's there. The first start is be present. Being present means sublimate to life. See the sublime in life. See what is there. See the blessing that is there. It's simple. It doesn't have to be loud. Be thankful. The 1,000 thank yous that you have all around you. It's a big concept. And this is a very, very deep secret of how to engage with thankfulness, happiness, and being able to move forward in life. Yeah? I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
This guy had his 8.5 billion euros.
Yeah.
His world was right and everything was in order and perfect. When he lost the 2.5 billion, it was chaos for him.
Yes.
And maybe, that's why he couldn't cope with it.
Couldn't cope.
It had nothing to do with the money, it was just...
Chaos. But chaos is, what is chaos?
upside down.
What is chaos? Lack of control. You lost control. I'm no longer able to have my cow rug perfect how I wanted it. I'm no longer able to have all my pieces in the way that I wanted them constructed. That's loss of control. When you live your life that way, you will constantly be susceptible to lack of control. But the issue was, as Richard was saying, the biggest curse is to be continuously successful. That life never gives you those moments that you're able to learn that, buddy, that's not what life's about. That eventually you're going to blow up because you're this empty shell with nothing inside. You've based everything and you've hinged everything on your successes. But you haven't, and you've forgotten about life itself. You've forgotten about what life is. It's a hectic place to be in.
Nobody can be successful until they've experienced proper failure.
That's also true. But on a deeper level, that means is the true success is tapping into the truest, deepest state of who you are. And that's not based on anything that surrounds you or any actions that you do. There's something much deeper there. Just engaging, just being, just conscious. Letting go of the ego. That's the truest self. We place so much pressure on ourselves. It's insane how we live. Insane that we're never present because there's so much pressure. This, that, do, next. And maybe tomorrow will be better. Maybe tomorrow finally I'll reach the state where I can sit back and engage with life. And then you're finally on holiday. And then what are you doing constantly? Checking your phone. What next do I have to do when I get back? And you're stressing about this and stressing about that. And this relationship is not good. And then look at this. Wow, that's nice. And then everything outside of you. Because you've forgotten about who you are.
But do you think anybody who can truly live in the present has never known what it's like to live in that chaos?
I would say...
born to, and they can actually...
I would say the opposite. It's only someone that has lived in that chaos that can live in the present. Because a person that has not tasted chaos and has tasted the pain of what it means to live a life in the ego can never live in the present. You have to taste the pain in order to understand what it means to be living in a place that's much more present and there.
It's Judaism as opposed to Buddhism, where you just go do nothing. You're engaging with the world.
Yeah.
But letting yourself go, but within its constructs. You're not divorcing yourself from work and life and family.
Yes. I would say the following. And I know we've said we'll end about 20 or 30 minutes ago, and if you need to go, we understand that. I think we're up to our 4th recording now or something, no? You need moments in your life where you're a bit of a Buddhist as well. Which means you need moments in your life where you come, like tonight. This is a Buddhist type of experience where we're not really engaging with life to its fullest extent. We're not out there in the work.
I don't know, we got some pretty good
we
whiskey.
got some
here.
nice whiskey, but I'm happy to be. That's Buddhist for me, you know. I'm a Buddha, you know. But what that means is there's moments of breath, isn't there? There's moments of clarity. There's moments of where you're completely conscious. We have to work on those time, places, and build up those muscles of consciousness to be able to sublimate as well. Because if you're just going to say, oh, I'm in this hectic, stuffed up situation, what do I do now? Oh, let's quickly listen to that shiur, remember what we learned about sublimating. No. You're going to be far from sublimating. You're going to be really, really upset. But if you have taken situations where it's clear, it's silent, you're going for a walk with the dog, or things are going nicely for you, and you're able to bring yourself present. You get into your car in the morning, for a couple of seconds, you're just still, and you listen to the nothingness. So, I appreciate what Gary's saying, but I want to also identify and say that in Buddhism, there's a lot of merit to this nothingness. The nothingness is the everything. The nothingness that we're talking about in Buddhism as well. Not that I have expansive knowledge of Buddhism, but the nothingness that they engage with is also the everythingness. In Judaism, it's a yesh ma'ayin. The ayin, the nothingness. We called it a nothingness. Ayin is nothing. That's the breath of everything. That's God. Bringing yourself into the nothingness is actually bringing yourself into godliness. Okay, we'll speak about that at another stage. But I think what Gary's point is very valuable is sublimating means sometimes you're going to be spiritual and see the sublime even moments when you're not conscious. Even when your hands are dirty and they're completely impure. In the morning where you wake up and you're completely, where am I? I don't even want to get up. But you say, Moide ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. Gevalt amoide. I give you my sublimation. I see the sublime even when I'm unconscious.
I was just going to say, that's why meditation is important.
Yes.
As a way to sublimate and break away from the hecticness of life, and just to connect with yourself and to internalize and find a balance.
Connect to your deeper self. And the deeper self has no difference or no dissonance to the expansive reality that's around you, which essentially is the divine nature that's there. We're not differentiating here, because if it's you and life, then I'm going to be all comfortable and meditative when I'm inside of me, and then Gewalt, when I open my eyes, I hate opening my eyes. I sometimes feel it, yeah? You meditate, everyone's nice, and now bring yourself back to the room. That's like the worst words you want to hear. You don't want to come back to the room. You want to keep your eyes closed, don't you? But it's different, because when you open your eyes, that's sublimating. You clear when your eyes are closed, and now it's all very blurry. Gewalt, what's life about? But I'm going to see the clarity, I'm going to see the sublime in this moment right now. That's seeing the divine even when you're seemingly unconscious in this crazy forest that we live in, yeah.